Before we begin, we would like to give a warning that there are some graphic pictures and videos throughout our presentation.
This is Colton. He's 11 years old and plays football, basketball, and loves to hang out with his family. He's from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and lives with his family of 5.
This is Ishmael. He is also 11, but he lives in Sierra Leone and is fighting in the RUF military. He has killed 3 people and been drugged many times.
There are hundreds of thousands of kids just like Ishmael all around the world right now. Good morning. My name is Jack Gabriel.
And my name is Parks Johnson.
Today we're going to be informing you all on the use of child soldiers, a horrific issue that is still occurring today.
Child soldiers are defined as any children under the age of 18 who are recruited by a state or non-state armed group and used as fighters, cooks, suicide bombers, human shields, messenger spies, or even sex slaves, as defined by DoSomething.org. And now we're going to show a 1 to 2 minute video about the child soldiers.
This year, across 20 conflict countries, the United Nations documented over 7,500 new cases of child recruitment, an increase of more than 25% from the previous year.
At this moment, there are roughly 300,000 active child soldiers around the world. Why children, you may ask? Well, the sad truth comes in 3 parts.
For one, they are defenseless and have no say in any of their decisions.
For 2, they are easily kept, fed, and maintained.
Thirdly, they are very impressionable and will adopt any traits and mindset a leader instills in them. Although child soldiers are found all over the world, Parks and I will be focusing on the horrible acts that are taking place in South Sudan, Uganda, and in rebel groups such as ISIS.
The best way to learn about experiences of being a child soldier are to listen to some. We will be including a few stories of past child soldiers throughout our presentation.
But first, let's take a look at the history of child soldiers.
Although child soldiers looks to be a contemporary problem, the practice has in fact become a common theme throughout much of human history.
As far back as ancient Greece, child soldiers have been used to complement adult military forces, or even serve as specialized military technique designed to challenge enemies and force pressure on them in unexpected ways. This phenomenon, though disturbing to many, has been a part of military science for centuries.
As you just heard, child soldiers have been around since the beginning of conflict itself, yet nothing has been done to diminish this problem.
Unfortunately, many people believe that the issue of child soldiers has actually declined in the past couple years, but they're completely wrong. The population of child soldiers is steadily growing.
One of the main reasons for this is that there is never any news about this because all the cases are in Africa. It never really pertains to us and it doesn't affect us.
In the past, there have been a few cases that have gained a lot of publicity, but recently there has not been many.
One of the biggest uprisings happened in 2012 with Joseph Kony and the Lord's Resistance Army. Many of you remember the red screens of Kony 2012 that were spread all across every social media website, causing a surge in awareness.
It is astonishing how fast people got involved with this movement. In just 2 weeks, it seemed everyone in the whole world knew about the abducted children fighting for the Lord's Resistance Army. Before this viral video was released, very few people even knew that child soldiers was an issue.
The best thing that came out of this publicity was not the money and the fame, but the awareness. Child soldiers haven't changed much since the past, but the magnitude has only grown.
Children are either recruited to the forces or are abducted from their hometowns, sometimes even forced to watch their families killed. Tang, who is a 10-year-old child and a government soldier, who doesn't even know his last name, he said either side would regularly storm schools, homes, and gatherings to recruit children at gunpoint.
Girls are forced to be sex slaves, and the boys, workers as well as armed soldiers. Commanders have deliberately and brutally recruited and used children to fight, in total disregard for their safety and for South Sudan's law, said Danielle Bickel, Africa Director at Human Rights Watch. Children are brainwashed to believe that they are doing the right thing. They are trained to be able to shoot, kill, and help the troops in any way. These children are as young as 6 or even 5 sometimes. In some settings, the kids are convinced that what they are doing is fun and is what everyone else is doing.
In our research, we came across a young girl named Grace Atria, She was abducted from her home in 1999 and has spent most of her life with the Lord's Resistance Army. By the time she was 16, she had already been raped and been forced to kill many men. Here we'll be inserting another video about 1 to 2 minutes. We focused on Uganda and South Sudan because they are both conflict-plagued countries. The kidnappings and recruitment have doubled in the past few years, which is making this issue even worse.
Yes, whether they are disputing with other countries or having civil issues, these war-torn African countries are involved in some form of conflict very frequently.
As we researched more and more, we found an odd correlation between the child soldier used in groups like ISIS and in groups like Uganda and South Sudan.
As the conflict with the U.S. has gone on, ISIS has become smarter with their tactics and started to use children for their missions. We will now show a short minute video of kid shooting guns, wrestling, and in the background it'll be reciting the Quran.
We decided to include ISIS in our presentation for one main reason. People care more about stuff that affects their well-being. Both of these atrocities are forms of terrorism. When you take a step back, you can see how similar the use of child soldiers are in the Middle East and in comparison to the child soldiers used in Africa.
Child soldiers also breaks half of the grave violations which the United Nations has created, and is also a direct violation of civil rights.
Rebel groups like ISIS have taken these children and used them as suicide bombers and created them into war criminals. Children are so good at this because they can be undercover. We now look at children as being threats rather than innocent little boys in the middle of a war zone.
There was another boy named Ishmael Bah who was brainwashed, drugged, and forced to kill. He ran from officers who were extremely violent and eventually escaped. He said, and I quote, "Somebody being shot in front of you, or yourself shooting somebody, became just like drinking a glass of water." Ishmael later went on to write a book titled A Long Way Gone. If a child does find a way to escape or is even freed, he or she has only fought half the battle. These children are overwhelmed with the memories of the war atrocities that they have seen or been a part of. In Liberia, studies show that 90% of child soldiers showed evidence of PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, and 65% displayed symptoms of a major depressive disorder. This was experimented by Siddharth Chaudhary.
We've taught you all about the history, the present, and the effects of child soldiers. But now, most importantly, why should you care? One of our main goals of sharing this conflict with our audience is what they will do with this information that we give them. We Americans are totally oblivious to this issue because it really isn't directly affecting us. We aim to explain people why they should care and why they should take action to help these children.
We feel strongly about this topic and believe others will as well. Everyone knows this is bad, but no one has had a reason to care at this point.
So why should you care? Because these are innocent children who are being abused in every aspect of life. They may not be our citizens, but they are human beings who should have the right of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
If these horrible things were happening in our own backyard, then there would be an uproar and something would be done immediately. Since it is across the globe, not many people know that it is happening. Once everybody is aware of the horrors taking place in these countries, no one will be able to sit still and let it happen. Raising awareness is the first step to creating a change.
As we're speaking, this issue is only getting worse, and if we don't step in, it could reach a point of no return.
We hope that through this presentation, we can create more stories like Colton's and not like Ishmael's.
No, we cannot change the past, but we can shape the future by correcting the present.
I am Parks Johnson.
And I'm Jack Gabriel.
And this is our idea worth sharing.